Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's me, Kenan Jerome Floyd, with another episode of the Dangerously Awkward Podcast. Thank you for coming back to hang out with us. And since we're celebrating the 20th day, 15th hour, 42nd minute, and 13th second of the partial government shutdown, this episode we're going to be talking about politics. So sit back and relax and enjoy this new episode of the Dangerously Awkward Podcast. Hello. Kenan Jerome Floyd here again, and welcome to my returning listeners of the Dangerously Awkward Podcast. For those of you that are new to this podcast, what it's about is I am a recovering former Jehovah's Witness, which means I am not one now. I was excommunicated from the church. And I talk about different topics from that vantage point of growing up in that religion. Basically what it is I was a Jehovah's Witness for 30 years, and there's different things that I couldn't do. I couldn't celebrate holidays, couldn't celebrate my birthday, couldn't have sex outside marriage, couldn't date, couldn't have worldly friends, people that were not Jehovah's Witnesses, and we were politically neutral, which I have to say is the one thing that I do respect the Jehovah's Witness for, because to be honest with you, people that vow to be Christians, in my opinion, or any other type of religion that gets behind a political figure, to me, you sound stupid. I'm sorry, you do. You sound stupid, especially with the person like Trump. Now, I'm not like on the bandwagon. I don't necessarily dislike Trump because of his policies or politics. I wish that that's what the conversation was about. It's basically him as a person. He's a very annoying person. Like, I would not hang out with this dude if he was just, Joe Blow on the street corner. You know what I mean? So, as a person, he annoys me. But as a businessman, that dude's gangsta. You have to respect a guy like that. Donald Trump is gangsta. People are mad at Donald Trump, I think, because he's getting a chance to do things that people only dreamed of. He was born into a rich family. He made billions of dollars off of a real estate business. He got away without paying taxes for years. He's been married like 4 times. He's banged porn stars. He's probably been with a whole bunch of, he had Russian prostitutes pee on him, allegedly. Just living the life. He said he's been able to have any woman that he's wanted to have on the entire planet. And he became president. Like, he said, I'm going to become president. Then he became president. Even if he was impeached tomorrow, he will still be able to say, I was rich, I lived in New York City, I married who I wanted to marry, and I became president of the United States. Like, there's no way you can take that away from him. And it's even more gangster now because normally the government is shut down when they run out of funding. This dude shut down the government because he didn't get his way. The government is partially shut down. 800,000 people are not getting paid today because this guy didn't get his way. He wants $5 billion for a wall he wants to build along the border, and Congress said no, and he said, you know what? I'm going to shut down the government, and he did. That's the most gangsta shit I've ever heard in my life. So you gotta respect him for that. Jesus Christ. I mean, people think that you can't get away with stuff. No, you can get away with a lot of stuff. It depends on who you are and how determined you are to do it. You can definitely get away with a lot of stuff. Um, and he's doing it. I mean, I've been rejected from working at Foot Locker. I've been rejected from jobs that aren't even that good. And this man, he's doing whatever he wants. Hey, sorry that my podcast is coming out a little late. It usually comes out at midnight on Thursdays, but I was working. I'm doing this industrial IT job, which means I install IT networking wires and construction sites, and then once the building's over, then I go in and I help set up the computers. It's a real boring job, but it's been tiring. I've been going to San Diego every single day for the past 2 weeks. I've been missing out on dates, open mic shows, and my car is still busted. Oh, I didn't tell you about that. I was this is how much my life ain't shit. I was doing DoorDash for a while because I'm an artist, and it really it wore down my brakes pretty good, right? I drove from New York City to Los Angeles back in August, so that's what 2,400 miles, 2,500 miles, something like that. And the car made it fine. Then I started door dashing, to supplement some funds because that's what we live in now. We live in a gig economy now. You remember a few years ago when you can actually go into your job and cuss everyone out because you knew you could have another job next week? It's not like that anymore. Nope. Not at all. Not at all one bit. You gotta take it what you get. Now you have 60-year-olds going back to work and getting yelled at by 16-year-old snot-nosed managers. What happened to us? Now it's a gig economy. Everyone's Ubering. Everyone is, doing DoorDash, Postmates. And some people work full time and are still homeless. That's messed up. Like, a lot of times you hear people on the news saying, well, we're bringing back jobs. We're bringing back jobs. We're bringing back jobs to the United States. But then it's like, well, that doesn't mean the jobs are any good. I mean, there's people that work at Walmart and Amazon and they're homeless, Jack. Home to the list. Homeless. And you go and you work in these places. Before I did this podcast, I worked at Staples. Staples is an awful place to work because if you ever go into Staples, if you notice, when you go there's a quota we have to sell, right? Like every time we sold a printer, because I was in the tech department, I sold electronics, I sold ink, and I fixed phones and I fixed computers. I should have been getting paid at least $40 an hour for that, but anyway, every time we sold a printer, we had to sell ink with the printer, plus paper, plus like a warranty on it, right? A protection plan, that's what they called it. So we would try to push these warranties on all these old people because that's the only people that shop at Staples. Let's be real. The only people that shop at Staples are old people because they don't know how to work the Amazons.coms and the eBays.coms and all that stuff. So old people come. And Staples knows it, so they say, okay, we need to take advantage of these people. So how about Kenan? I want you to sell a bunch of unnecessary shit with this printer. But they don't give us a commission for it. Like I was pretty good at selling warranties. And the way the warranty worked was if it broke down, you had to call. You couldn't bring it back in. You had to call and mail it in and then get a new refurbished printer. It was awful. It was criminal. But I they wouldn't give you a commission for it. They would say, well, if you sell more, then you'll get more hours. Oh, so you're holding my ability to live in a house with heat hostage? So you want me to sell unnecessary credit cards and warranties to old people that aren't going to be around long enough to cash in? And then it's going to plunge their grandkids into generational debt? Oh, man. When I was in Brooklyn, I worked at Staples. I sold one credit card. I got one guy to sign up for a credit card. And, I don't know. I went to the break room and I cried. Because I'm in credit card debt. I know what it's like. It's all a part of a stupid system. It's all part of a stupid system to keep people down. To keep people that can't really afford it down. I mean, it's easier to go to jail than it is to keep a good job at this point. This is what I learned when I lived in New York City. For example, in New York City, everything is astronomically more expensive. Just ridiculously expensive, right? And this is how the system works out, right? Since everything else gets expensive, then the necessities get expensive, right? Like public transportation. To have a car in New York City, you have to pay the fines. You have to make sure you move your car. Parking is horrible. So if you can't find parking, then you have to pay to have it parked. You have to pay for a driveway. You can't park your car in front of your on your lawn of your house, or you have to pay a fine. If your car is caught on the street during street cleaning, you get a ticket, and that's a huge fine. If they catch you on the cell phone, you get pulled over. That's a $300 ticket. If you make a right turn on a red light, that's another like $100 ticket. And most of the time, you have to work 2 jobs just to barely make rent. Rent is astronomically expensive in New York City. So you have a person that has those tickets, right? And they have to make it to work, but they're not going to drive because it's expensive to drive, right? So they take the subway, right? So all their money goes to rent, all their money goes to food, all their money goes into car insurance, right? So they say, oh, I got to make it into the city, so I'm going to go to the subway. Then you go to the subway, and they hike up the price. The price is more expensive than what it was. And you're like, man, I don't have the $275 to be able to pay, so I'm going to hop the turnstile. You hop the turnstile, you get stopped by a cop, you get a ticket. You can't afford to pay the ticket because you got to go to work. You can't go to work because you have no money for the subway, right? So you don't pay the ticket. You end up getting a warrant on your name because you didn't pay the ticket because you couldn't afford it. So the next time you get stopped or you get pulled over, you go to jail because of your warrant, then you have a record, and then it makes it hard for you to get a job because, of course, there's that stigma of people that were in prison, because people don't care what you did. They're just like, oh, you were in prison, you're a criminal, right? And then on top of that, everyone's being priced out of the neighborhood. All the black and brown people are being priced out of the neighborhood. Gentrifiers are moving in. Everyone's either moving to the Bronx or to upstate New York. So before, you would hear people talk about oh, all these criminals out here, all these criminals selling drugs and blah, blah, blah. Or all these homeless people out here, they need to get a job. I get it. No, I get it. Because, for example, you could go up to a homeless person like, yo, could you give me some money, please? And you're like, well, hey, why don't you just go out and get a job? He's like, I do. I work at Staples. And I'm like, oh, shit. You didn't sell enough warranties. It is easier to go to jail than it is to get a good job. Um, so this government shutdown, right? 800,000 people aren't getting paid this week. Not until Trumpy boy gets $5 billion for his wall. And it's interesting because a lot of people that are, a lot of my friends that are on Facebook aren't really commenting about the government shutdown. I think people are just getting tired of this guy. At the end of the day, I think that's essentially what it is. I think people are just getting tired of him. I think people I think people, I don't know, because he still has supporters, and I don't know if his supporters are, trolls, because we went to a point where it seems like people will cut off their nose to spite their face. You know what I mean? Just to make, because it's gotten out of hand. The political spectrum has really gotten out of hand. That people just want, the people are trolls in real life. Absolute trolls in real life. So every time someone says the opposite, someone says something, someone has to come with the opposite. And the opposite don't make no damn sense. Like, oh, whoa. Like, I remember during the Kavanaugh hearing. During the Kavanaugh hearing, the lady talked about Kavanaugh, the alleged rape or whatever, right? And then they asked Trump. They said, Trump, what do you think about the Kavanaugh hearing? What message are we sending to our little boys, to the men in this country? And Trump looked in the face of the camera and he said, there's women out here lying. What? Yeah, there's women out here lying. We need to, men need to be careful. These women out here in these streets, they're just lying on niggas. I was like, oh my God. This dude don't give a fuck. Because what we're used to people saying the right thing all the time, which I get. That's why people like Trump. So a lot of people like Trump because he's not the one. He's not the one that's going to be like, oh yeah, this is what I'm supposed to say. He's going to say exactly what he feels. He's going to say exactly what he feels. And for some people, that's refreshing. And again, I'm not saying this in support. I'm just telling it for what it is. I'm just really telling it for what it is. Because I remember working. I remember when I was watching the debates between Hillary and Trump. Hillary was very calculated. Hillary was very, very calculated in her responses. So much so that you knew it was rehearsed. What essentially happened with the Democrats was they were so arrogant because of who Trump was, of how sloppy he was, the way he said things. He went against the grain. They were so arrogant that they felt that they had the win in the bag. And the arrogance that Hillary had, it's essentially at the end of the day what killed her. Because I was when the election started, I was in Pennsylvania. I was working in Pennsylvania. And everybody at my job was going to vote for Trump. Like, they were all open. They're like, nope, I don't like Hillary. I don't like she's going to take away my guns, which wasn't going to happen. Because the NRA lobbies both parties. She's going to take my guns, she's going to do this, she's going to do that, blah, 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 blah. So it's like, I knew that there was a huge portion of the United States that did not like Hillary. And it had nothing to do with her being a woman. It had nothing to do with whatever with the subterfuge that people was saying it was. Because people were saying, well, it was because she was a woman. No, that's not true at all. It's like if you paid attention to politics in the last 2 decades, you had Hillary's number. Like all of a sudden, I'm supposed to forget that Hillary called black males super predators. I'm supposed to ignore Benghazi. I'm supposed to ignore the fact that there's a rumor that they get people killed. I'm supposed to ignore the corruption. You know. And then Hillary she pandered. I think she pandered too much. She pandered too much, and it was obvious. People assume. I think people just assume that us as Americans, we are dumb. We are dumb enough to just accept pandering. Like, for example, what is Hillary Clinton doing on BET talking about hot sauce and dancing? That was a pure pander. 20 years ago, you said black men are super predators, and then you go on BET and you're like, I put hot sauce on everything. Like the fuck? So I understood. I knew that Trump was going to win when they had the debate, and Trump. This is how gangster Trump is. When they had the debate, they were talking about something, and instead of answering the question, Hillary said, Hillary goes, "I am ready to be the president of the United States." And then the audience started clapping, and then Trump stuck his head in front of the camera and said, "You're going to jail." Like that. That was some gangsta shit. That was some gangsta shit. All right. Now let's talk about the other side. Essentially what it is the same tactics that's used in the Jehovah's Witness to manipulate people emotionally is the same tactics that they use in politics. It's all about emotion. People vote based on emotions, not policies. For example, in the Jehovah's Witnesses, the main reason that a lot of people follow the rules is because they're afraid of losing their family. Because if you break the rules, you get disfellowshipped or disassociated or excommunicated. And the penalty of that is you lose contact with your family and friends that you've grown for a long period of time. So therefore, emotion is always at the top form. It's the top motivator for anything that you do for the church, correct? When it comes to politics, a lot of the politicians showboat. They showboat. They use rousing speeches. They appear on Ellen and they dance. And they get Jay-Z and Beyonce to come, and then they get, it's all emotion, right? So the Democrats, what they did was they essentially tried to appear to be the cool party. Trump knew that if he was going to win the Midwest, he had to go to the Midwestern roots. That's one of the reasons why he's not going to denounce David Duke of the Ku Klux Klan. We forget that the United States was built on racism. So of course, that's millions of people in his fan base. David Duke, do you know how much political power David Duke has? Wasn't he the governor of Louisiana or some shit? David Duke has a lot of political power. So, of course, he's not going to denounce David Duke. Nobody's going to denounce the NRA. Do you know how many people love guns? They love guns so much that they will take a gun side over 15 white children getting shot in a school. When you know people don't give a fuck about white children getting shot, you know that stuff is serious. We have to look at ourselves as a society We have to look at ourselves as a society and ask ourselves the question: who are we really? Like, I would just rather just be honest. Just be honest. That's all. That's all. Just be honest about it. If you don't like me because I'm black, then just say it. Don't say, it was the same thing with it's the same thing when people try to compare uh, Trump to Obama and all that shit. Like, it's like, just be honest with me. I always find it interesting how Christians are behind, like, there's a lot of Christians and behind Trump, which I find interesting. Cuz right now it's not just a split between the Democrats and the Republicans. It's a whole new thing where now there's a fight between conservatives and liberals. And I almost think that the definition what people are redefining what being liberal and being conservative really means. For example, if you look up the meaning of liberal, a liberal is open to new behavior or opinions and willing to discard traditional values. That seems like a new definition. To me. That seems like a new definition. If we want to look at political philosophy, liberalism has more to do with liberty. You know what I mean? It's a political and moral philosophy based on liberty and equality, right? And that's the key word right there. Liberalism has to do with equality. Now it seems that liberalism has turned into inequality with people that have opposing views to conservatism. Now they're trying to take down anybody that they feel has a conservative point of view. And then if you look at the definition of conservatism, it's a conservative holds to traditional attitudes and values and is cautious about change or innovation typical in relation to politics or religion. Okay. I get it. I mean, it's a person that doesn't really change. But the question really becomes, can a person be both? Can a person be down the middle? Can he be conservative and liberal? He can be conservative in some things, and he can be liberal in other things. Like, for example, you can be fiscally conservative with your finances, have greater control of your finances, build generational wealth. There's a lot of people out there that are liberal, that are fiscally conservative. Like a lot of these millionaires and stuff that claim to be liberal, they're fiscally conservative. You can be social conservative too. That's basically when you choose not to live a certain way. You know what I mean? You could choose to be a certain. I mean, you could be fiscally conservative and socially liberal. Like that's the ideal. I mean, it's gotten to a point where if you claim to be liberal, you can't. Like, they don't like you to have any type of conservative viewpoints, and to me that really defeats the purpose of being American. But what I was saying earlier, it just seems interesting how Christians claim Trump. Some Christians, conservative Christians, claim Trump as a Christian person. I mean, if you look at Trump's lifestyle, nothing about his lifestyle denotes that he's conservative or Christian. You know what I mean? Nothing he has done in his life ever has contributed to, like, just, that's why it's like, be honest. You like him because of, say it. Don't try to look at me and be like, oh, it's because God It's because God, no. Just say you like that he's going to put up the border and keep out the Mexicans, and he's dividing the country, and he says what he wants. Say that stuff. Don't be like, well, it's because he's a Christian. Trump is a businessman. He's been married 4 times. He cheated on his wife when he was pregnant with a porn star. He's rich. He's a capitalist. He's running a business as we speak. For other people out there that claim to be Christian, that claim this guy, what he does, he uses buzzwords. He says things like, "We're gonna say Merry Christmas now," and then everyone applauds him. What the fuck does that mean? What's the big deal about that? We don't want Christians to be persecuted. Who's persecuting Christians in the United States? I mean, there's countries where Christians are being persecuted, and when I say persecuted, I mean thrown off the roofs of buildings. Who in the United States is being killed because they're Christian? I mean, Daniel 2:44 says that God will wipe out all the kingdoms of the earth. He will crush them. They have no meanings. Revelation 6:2 talks about Christ coming as king. On a white horse with a bow. He will conquer and complete his conquest. Hold on a second. John 15:18. If the world hates you, you know that it has hated me before it hated you. Jesus is saying this. Verse 19. If you are part of the world would be fond of what is its own. Now because you are no part of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world. For this reason, the world hates you. No part of the world. That's what Jesus said. I mean, I'm just using this as a source. I'm just using this as a source. Well, this is a scripture that people like to quote all the time when it comes to racism. Acts 17:26, and he made out of one man every nation of men to dwell on the entire surface of the earth, and he created the appointed times and the set times of where men would dwell. One man. There's only one race. The human race, according to the Bible. Ugh. Become imitators of God. Ephesians 5:1. I don't know. It's a hard sell to convince me how I can use my religion. There's preachers and stuff that support this guy. That support politics in general. As far as I feel about politics, look. I missed out on all of Obama's presidency. I was in the Dominican Republic serving as a missionary from 2006 to 2014. So he was elected in 2008 and he got out in 2016. So I was only in the country for 2 years of his presidency. And people vote based on emotion. People react to things based on emotion, and that's essentially what politics is to me. To show you how much it's emotional, my mother, who's a devout Jehovah's Witness, called me on the phone the day Obama was elected to tell me that Obama, the first black president, was elected. And you have to keep it in the context too. My parents were born in the 40s. They're baby boomers. They were alive and active during the civil rights movement. My father went to my parents met at Tuskegee University, a historical black college in Alabama, and my father also graduated from Fisk University, another HBCU. So I mean, when they were the same age that I went to the Dominican Republic, they were affecting change in the United States for black people. Like, they were in the same line as Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and all those people. James Baldwin. They were alive around that time. My uncles were involved in the Million Man marches and running for office and sitting at the lunch counters. My family was involved in change. So for them to see a black president, a black man become president, it was emotional for them. Because there was a time where they couldn't even they couldn't even drink out of the same water fountain. It's all about emotion. When I left the country, George W. was still president. I came back. Now we had the 2016 election. Now what's his lips is in office now. And again, it was a backlash. It was a backlash because Obama. I mean, I don't know a lot about Obama's policies. I mean, I knew some things he did. I knew some bills he tried to pass was shut out by Congress. I also know that he bombed a lot of people using drones. However, he was cool though. He had a nice he was funny. He had swag. He was calm and collected, had a beautiful family, no scandals, one wife, 2 kids. And the same people that claim Trump is a Christian man said that Obama was a good-for-nothing, treasonous Muslim. So again, just be honest about it. If we want to talk policy, then let's talk about policy. But if you don't like somebody because of, just fucking say it. Just say it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm interested in what I'm interested in. And that's for black people to have a stake. To have a stake in America. I mean, essentially, this is essentially what happened. We just need to understand that black people in the United States have always been used as pawns in political realms. Politics, both parties have always used black people as pawns to try to get us to side with them. And it's certainly true. It's certainly true today, and it's because we're a huge voting power. We contribute $1 trillion into the global market, and we swayed votes. Like that thing that happened in Alabama with Roy Moore. The dude's a pedophile, and the only reason he wasn't put in office is because black women voted against that motherfucker. If it was up to white people, he would be running Alabama right now. We've always been used as pawns in the political game, all the way going back to the Revolutionary War, 1776, baby, Revolutionary War. The Patriots, they manipulate the slaves to fight for them, the 13 colonies to fight for them, with the illusion that they were going to be freed from slavery. The British, on the other hand, invited slaves to come and fight with the Loyalists, and they were also granted freedom. So when you think about like a slave, he's like, well, why don't you just give me freedom? You mean I gotta do shit? I gotta do shit to get my freedom? So you had slaves going against the Patriots. They became loyalists. The British moved them to Nova Scotia, and a lot of free slaves ended up returning back to West Africa or going down to Jamaica and all that shit, right? And that's where the Book of Negroes comes from. The Book of Negroes was a registry of all the free slaves from the Revolutionary War. It registered them and it relocated them. You could Google this. The Book of Negroes. They left the country during the Revolutionary War as loyalists, and they went back to Africa. They chose to go back to Africa. So even then, our freedom, which is naturally granted to every man on earth, was being used. It was being used as a political pawn. That's why now every time there's an election, they talk about fucking prison reforms. Prison reform. You know prisons are a business. Why are you holding that carrot in front of our face to get us to choose? Just do it. But if they did it, there would be no reason, there would be no way to, because think about it, black people, we know what time it is. We really don't. That's the reason why we never really got involved in politics in the first place. I'm actually going to save that bit. I'm going to save that conversation for the next episode. I'm going to save that conversation for the next episode. I got a lot to talk about as far as race is concerned. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next episode. In the next episode, I'm also going to talk about R. Kelly. I was going to talk about it in this episode, but I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for the next episode. So in the next episode, I'm going to talk about race, and I'm going to talk about R. Kelly in the next episode. So make sure you listen out for that. Make sure you listen up for that, because that is going to be good. I got a lot of heat that I'm going to bring on that. What else? Yeah, so that's basically it. As far as politics is concerned, like who you like, whatever. It doesn't really matter to me personally, because I think it's all a game. I think it's all a sham. There's extremes in both sides. The conservative side, the liberal side, both extremes. Both sides annoy me. And don't get me started on those libertarians. But at the end of the day, it's easier to go to jail than it is to keep a good job. So that's been me. I'm Kenan Jerome Floyd. Thank you so much for listening in on this podcast, the Dangerously Awkward Podcast. This is episode 4. For those of you that are in San Francisco, I will be at Trademark and Copyright, doing a Dangerously Awkward show, doing a Dangerously Awkward comedy show. I'm co-headlining with my boy Anye Malik. Go ahead and get your tickets on my website at KenanJeromeFloyd.com/shows. It's $10. It's going to be a good time. 8:30. So if you're in San Francisco, please come and join us. We're going to have some fun. And that's it. This has been Kenan Jerome Floyd. Thank you for listening in, and have a good weekend.